Oh hey, didn't see you there. That was really stupid. Two things before we get this video started. I wanted to give a huge shout out to NP Boosted for hooking me up big time with this manifold. So thank you guys over there. I will leave their website link below. So check them out. They do have a bunch of other parts, turbos, coil packs. I mean, not just for, you know, RBs. They have it for a bunch of other cars as well. So check them out. Also, in this video, I did have to break it up into two parts. So this video is being uploaded today, which is Friday, and the normal upload day, I'm still uploading the second part to this video on Sunday, so in 2 more days. Just because I tried to cut out and shave as much as I could, but with this install, there's a lot of, you know, there's a little more complexity involved, and I wanted to make sure to cover everything. So for anybody's doing a similar intake install and that has a Neo, because this is kind of, it'll work for S1, S2, but the Neo has something special with the IACV valve. I made sure to dive deep into that portion. But yeah, that is it, and now on to our now on to our regularly scheduled program. Alright, you guys. The time has finally come where I can actually, not necessarily unbox, because I've already unboxed it, just to kind of make sure everything was accounted for. But I have been storing this underneath my car, just so that's out of the way. But this is my forward-facing intake manifold Plenum. Alright, so I'm just going to put everything on this table here so we can kind of lay out and see all the parts that came with the intake manifold. Alright, so first, obviously this is the throttle body. And I'm going to have to double check, because doing some research they said that this would leak over here by the bearing. Yeah, it looks like a good piece. The milling on here, super clean, and the flat black with the gloss black looks really nice as well. So I don't know, we'll see. And this is the adapter for the throttle positioning sensor. Yeah, this thing's huge. Then we have the hardware. This looks like a block-off plate for the IACV, and the stands for the fuel rail, as well as the hose fittings. The collector for the water hoses, and more barb fittings. This part I wanted to make sure I had. It's the IACV valve plate adapter for the RB25 Neo. So the RB25 series 1 and 2, there's actually a plate. It looks like this with the 3 bolts, and it is different as far as on the Neo. So I'm glad this plate came with it, or else I would not be able to run this manifold unless I wanted to delete my IACV, which I do not. So we also have the fuel rail, and I already went over the hoses here. So let's take a look at the actual plenum. The main things that I was concerned about are the welds, and as far as I can tell, the welds look very nice. These are obviously hand done. As far as the face, it's decked nice and clean, super straight. And also what I liked is the runners. It looks like the runners inside were also painted, so you can kind of see right there. So everything was painted, which is nice for Just not only obviously the cleanliness of it, and I wish I could I'll probably get a flashlight here so you guys can see the runners, but everything inside is actually pretty clean. Flashlight with using the camera just did not work, so I'm actually going to use my iPhone, and we'll switch the video to here so I can have that with the actual flash on, or the actual light on. So, alright, so what I wanted to show here, and it is a little dusty, which is fine, but as far as the openings, my main concern was the runner ports themselves didn't have, you know, a bunch of deburring that needed to be done, or just completely jagged edges, which this isn't horrible. You can kind of see where there's a little bit of a lip right before the runner. I obviously would, if it was up to me and this was opened, I would probably grind that all off, but I mean, for the price that I paid on this, I'm pretty happy with it. Like I said, it could be worse. And as far as through here, again, kind of dusty in here, which I'll try to blow it out with some compressed air, but that's actually not bad at all. Let's see if I can zoom in here. Overall, for the price that I got this, and for the quality, I'm not disappointed. So before we install the intake, I do want to get my oil sandwich plate adapter here, because once my intake is here, it'll be a little bit harder to clean this area up. So if you know RBs, you know that in this spot right here, there is a stock water cooler for your oil. And there's some lines that run through it, which look like this right here. So this is actually what bolts onto there. So you'll have this go onto the block, which slips on and bolts with these 4 bolts. And then you'll have your oil filter. And these are the water lines that run through it. So I'm actually going to delete this whole thing. So there is the factory oil temperature sensor, as well as the oil pressure right here. So there's going to be 2 spots that I'm going to use on my sandwich plate that I can go ahead and install now. I'm not sure if you guys watched the last video. I did talk about the genuine greddy one that I have versus the eBay one. So obviously I'm going to be running my eBay one. Just kidding. But so the problem with the bolt-on sandwich plates is on the RB block there is this fitting here that is not threaded. So if you go to Raw Brokerage, I did pick up their part, which I'll leave the link for that part below. So if you guys want to do a sandwich plate instead of purchasing the 4-bolt adapter that they sell, because they do have the 4-bolt adapters that can just bolt right onto here. Again, budget wise, you're looking at $200 to $300 for that, versus a sandwich plate at $100, and the actual fitting from Raw Brokerage for, I think it was like $3. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how to remove this. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit, and let's get that sandwich plate on. This is the fitting right here that is gonna replace that center fitting on this one that doesn't have any threads on it. I'm gonna try not to score any of this. I'm sure there's a tool that would actually work with this, but I don't have it. So maybe I should do the right side. Okay. There we go. And that seemed to work perfectly. There we go. So I just used a small little monkey wrench, and that comes off just like that. Now I'm gonna clean this up really quick. Clean that up with the rag. And I'm actually going to throw on a small coat of paint back on here, just cause it's gonna bug me. All right, so I left my intake intact just so that way I could, it'd be easier to refer to the lines later. This is the stock intake plenum. It's kind of weird because you don't have the throttle body here, but this is the front. I like to keep things completely together just because when, you know, as far as taking apart the motor, it's usually the easiest task. It's putting it back together correctly, especially with all the routing and the lines. So if you look, this is the IACV valve that I will be moving over, and now we can actually see exactly where all this stuff goes. So if you look, this guy is going to be hosed to the throttle body, which I will not be running. So this we can actually block off. This port in the middle, it looks like it is going to the return section. That is the middle port, and the end port right here is going to be on the feed side. So I'm going to use these two. This will be blocked off, and I don't know if it really matters which direction you do it, but I want to keep it the same orientation so that way if it is important that it's the same kind of routing, which I think it is. I did see a video where somebody blocked off this one and used these two, but again, I'd rather do it how I see it on this stock manifold. All right, so I went ahead and labeled it. So this will go to, when it's underneath, I'll make a line that will run to the front right here, and this one will go to the rear when I make that, and this will be blocked off. And looking at the actual valve itself, looks pretty clean. There's some corrosion over here, which I will actually clean with some MAF cleaner, which is safe on any electronics, which I think even normal cleaner would be fine, but just to be on the safe side, I don't want to ruin anything that's in here. So in the kit here, you will be supplied this O-ring, which will actually go in this groove here. Now, to be honest, I would have preferred to just use the factory gasket, but because this is now, so now that it's beveled in here, running this, you may have issues with it being blown out right here. So I want to run this with it. I honestly think that would be a good way to go as well, but I don't want to create any boost leaks by having two gaskets. So for now, I'm going to run just this supplied O-ring, and it should be sufficient. And yeah, I mean, the milling on here, it's, if this was not like super smooth, I'd have, you know, obviously be more inclined to do something else, maybe even fill that up or something, but there's no way to mess this part up because it is just one way. So if you look, that'll go like this, which I think this will be fine. So let's go ahead and put these with the supplied bolts. Hopefully you guys can see this. So, all right, so let's make sure that these are down tight to prevent any leaks. So this guy, again, same thing, there's only one way for this to go on. Yeah, that's not gonna work. So here's our first problem. These screws are too big because now when you try to put them on, when you try to put it on, they're actually in the way of making this sit flush. So that is a huge problem. All right, so let me switch to this camera. I've been using the GoPro, and I think this will show this a lot better. So my issue here is with these, let's switch sides so you guys can see. With these supplied bolts that will actually bolt this on to here. I thought maybe I was upside down, but looking on this, on the actual bracket, there is a recess for these bolts. The only problem is they're too big. So no matter what you do, it's not gonna sit flush. So you can, well, I thought maybe I could just try to find the thread pitch of these and purchase new bolts that will work, that will be recessed in this plate. But I don't want to do that, so I figured let's try to figure out a way to get this done now. So what I did, I actually attached this guy, so the provided bolt, I attached that to, and I'll actually bring it over there so you can see. I attached it to my drill, and I was able to get a sanding stone, and what I did was I attached it to as if it was a bit. I just did that. I don't know if you can see, let me, and I didn't clamp it down too tight because it just has to be tight enough where, you know, it'll hold on to it. And I just grinded it down and kept checking to make sure that the head of the nut itself would, let's see if I can, so the head of this nut would actually fit in here, and now it does. So now when it sits in there, if you look, it's more than flush. So now the problem is, I'm hoping that if this is on the edge of the actual IACV valve mounting area, then it's going to leak. That means air is going to get from one side to the other. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to either fill this up with some RTV. So again, this block off plate, or this adapter plate design is already giving me issues. It's another problem that I'll have to figure out, but for now I'm going to do the other two bolts so that we can bolt that plate down. Okay, so this makes me feel a little bit better. So my main concern was, obviously this is the gasket for what you're gonna see on the IACV. The fact that it is covering the nut on this and this completely, if I had it, if you saw it like this, obviously that's a concern because the air can seep, you know, below, because this is kind of recessed too much, and so you'd have air coming out through here. And then same thing with this guy. If it was like this, you'd have air coming through. The fact that when you have the gasket on, you don't see the bolt, that's a lot more reassuring. So I'm still gonna put the actual OEM RTV sealant on this and this, so that way there's no chance of any leaks. Alright, so I got everything on. Off camera, I had to do some modification yet again to the IAC valve. So when you put three bolts down, the last one, no matter which way you do it, it just does not want to thread in. So what I had to do, I just took a drill bit that was almost the exact same size as the the holes in the actual valve, and I drilled it out a little bit. So the ones I chose to do was this one and this one, just because they have the most material connecting them to the IAC valve itself. If you look at these guys, I didn't really want to make those very much bigger. You don't have to make them that much bigger at all. It's just a tiny bit, just so that way you can thread all four at the same time. So I'm gonna put this down, tighten these down, and we should be good to go. Alright, so just like that, she is on. and everything is torqued down for a 10mm nut. But yeah, so I still got my markings here so I know what to do, and the plug. So I think we are pretty much ready to pop her on for right now. To get this on easier, I'm going to temporarily use the stock studs here. I'm just going to turn them in just a couple cranks there, just so that way to get everything on it'll be a lot easier instead of trying to maneuver everything by myself here. So we got the new gasket. I got an OEM intake gasket, and the actual hardware that it comes with is actually, it feels good. It feels weighted. It's not like a aluminum. I would be a little concerned if it was. So now, with your assembly together, let's go ahead and make sure when you do this too, you start off with both right on already, or else it will not go on. So now this should be a lot easier. And on mine, I did have to bend this down. So if you notice, I'm actually gonna have to bend this down and back or forward because I don't want it to get in the way of the, I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing here. But as far as the space here, it looks good. So let's go ahead and get these all on. So I did put the washers on there already. So let's just start. Again, I'm just gonna loosely get all these bolts in. And should all go in there pretty easily. So far so good. Alright, so before I show you guys the final product here, or somewhat final product, couple things that I would highly recommend if you do end up getting this intake is, one, these fittings right here. So your vacuum ports, these guys are garbage. So I can even feel it. It is super light. I mean, these, if you over tighten them, and that's what happened to some other YouTubers that I've watched, they barely tighten them down and they just snapped. And then you'll have fun trying to remove it from, you know, the threads from the port. Okay, so without further ado, let's check this thing out. Alright, you guys, that marks the end of another video, and she's looking a lot better. She's looking like a motor now. The whole long block with just a manifold wasn't cutting it for me anymore. So now we have the front-facing intake, and I think it looks amazing with the paint that I chose. So yeah, hopefully this helped you guys out if you are looking for either the same intake manifold or something similar. And if you have a Neo, because there's a bunch of videos out there with the S1, S2, the Neo with the IACV valve being a little different. Hopefully this helps you guys out, all the Neo guys out there. For the standard S1, S2, everything's the same except for that adapter plate. But yeah, thank you again so much for watching. We have a lot more coming, so stay tuned, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Later.